Good morning, everybody. This is a very small audience, so I'd like to approach this more in the way of like a university tutorial. And really what I've been thinking about is more in terms of a discussion paper than a formal talk. So I hope not to talk for more than like 20 minutes, maybe have room for some questioning. The title. I think we're all astute enough to know that all schools have marketing departments. And one of the job of marketing departments, I have a colleague in the front row there, Michael from the marketing department, is to come up with sentences or come up with taglines. Fair enough. I was determined to think of a tagline, so to speak, that actually and truthfully reflected what we do. So I didn't want to come up with something that's just airy-fairy. This reflects what we are doing at Malvern. My interest in this particular subject started about a year ago when I listened to a fascinating BBC programme where they had a good number of the UK's CEOs. There were about 20, 25 of them. And there was one clear message from these CEOs which gave me real food for thought. They do not want Oxford and Cambridge degrees necessarily on their staff. They do not want their staff necessarily to be coding experts or to be experts in this, that, or the other. The skill base that they all argued was going to become increasingly vital for the next 5, 10, 15 years is creativity. So I'm going to try and focus on that for the next few minutes. If I can remember how to do. So this is the quick agenda. These are the different subtopics that I will be talking about briefly. Okay, there's a ghastly picture of myself. A little bit of background about me. I started off as an academic. I wasn't going to say this, but I'll tell you. When I went to school myself, I went to a pretty prestigious school in the UK. I hated it. And when I was 16, I said to, and this is true, it sounds corny, but it is true. When I was 16, I said to myself that I'd spend part of my life doing something that I really wanted to do. And I ended up in academia. I was in university for a long time. But then I vowed that I'd spend the second part of my life running a school where I would have liked to have been a boy. And that's what I'm doing. And I find it very, very fulfilling. The only thing that's really worth pointing out on this is the very last bullet point. That one thing I have come to learn more than anything else in my many years in Malvern, UK, is how crucial it is to provide an education for the whole child. I'm an academic, absolutely. I am an academic through and through, as is my wife. But I recognise that for children of today, they've got to have not only an excellent academic education, it's got to be balanced with every opportunity to develop all their other skills, personality traits, character formation, and those are just as important as exam grades. You've got to bring the two together. A successful, happy, fulfilled life, academic, and all the personal stuff, really vital. You may well hear other schools and other heads saying that, but I am so passionate about it. And to be frank, where I really grew to realise how important that was I spent 9 years as a housemaster, living with 65 teenage boys. That taught me that message. It was fun, it had its moments, I assure you, but on the whole, being a housemaster was fun. It was exhausting, but fun. I entered Malvern, UK from the university sector. I started off as a head of department. I was then a housemaster. I was then senior housemaster, deputy head, senior deputy head, which essentially meant I run the school in Malvern, UK. And then I was asked to come out here to establish Malvern, Hong Kong. But I'm talking too long. I must move a little bit more quickly. really important, and maybe this is stating the obvious, you and I, and particularly our children, are going to face a very challenging time compared to when I was young. We are living in a moment of quite precarious geopolitical instability. And that's global. The United States, the Middle East, Europe, Africa. The instability is horrendous. And it's not going to go away overnight. We're going to be living with this for a good 10, 15 years. Health. Okay, COVID. I don't need to talk about that. Energy and the environment. It was terrific to hear in the UK Boris Johnson saying a couple of days ago, no more petrol or diesel cars in Britain in 2030. Banning in Britain, all gas boilers for central heating. Energy and the environment are going to become crucial issues in the next few years. And once I hope Biden gets in okay, I think it will become, it'll get up the top of the world agenda again. And I believe education and schools should lead the way on that. One of the things I find very disappointing in Hong Kong is that Hong Kong doesn't have the solar panels, the photoelectric cells that I think it should have. We need to demonstrate to the world that living in this kind of climate, we should be more tuned into the environment. The children in my school spend a lot of time talking about these things. Security goes with geopolitical instability. Food and water. Okay, there's some positives. I don't know whether you know this, but Britain won the recent International Champagne Festival. We beat every French champagne because now on the south coast of the UK the climate is such that we are able to grow grapes that now beat champagne. And there were French people that gave Britain the award. It was blind tasting. Okay, that's a little bit not too serious, but it does underline the changes in the food and water supply, that we have increasing crop issues around the world, in Africa in particular, but not only in Africa. Masses of inequality. You can read about the geopolitical situation with the refugee situation from Africa, which is going to exacerbate in the next 3 to 5 years. It really is, I don't want to be too dramatic about it, but we are living in very, very unstable times. Yet education, the lack of the global disparity in education, the rise in religious fundamentalism, which is again, having worked in a sector which dealt with these things before when I was an academic, the rise in religious fundamentalism is going to become increasingly problematic around the world. All the time, internationalism. The world is getting smaller. We know things instantaneously, which even 10 years ago took a while to filter out. Companies are structured in such a way that they are globally based now in a way in which it didn't happen. These are the kind of things that our children will have to face. Very well-known quotation, I'm sure you've come across that before. We are currently preparing students for jobs in technology that don't yet exist, in order to solve problems that we don't even know are problems yet. Yes and no. Yes and no. I went to a conference about 18 months ago where we were told every child should be prepared for 3 to 5 different careers in their life. I don't actually think that's accurate. There are certain careers, if your children go for them, law, medicine, architecture, which will probably stand the ground for their whole career. There are other careers which, however, will go through dramatic changes. And we've got to, again, prepare our children for those changes that they will have to confront. Excuse me whilst I gasp for some water. So what are we doing in a school to try to begin to prepare our children for the crises that we are in? Excuse me, frightfully crude to drink out of bottle, if you me. When I was a boy, most of our lessons were we sat in rows, teacher at the front with a blackboard, the teacher explained factual information, you wrote it down, you regurgitated it, and you hopefully got a decent grade. No, hopeless. That is not what exams, that is not what schooling is about, or should be about. You do still find that in some schools. And if schools are doing that, they are failing your children abysmally. So on the left, we have the kind of more traditional old-fashioned approach to education. Teacher-centered instruction, isolated work with children on their own, listening, writing, information delivery, passing on knowledge, passive, just sitting there absorbing, fact, give them facts, let them learn it, and it's not linked in to actually the world around. We are moving on. We don't, at Malvern, and with the IB, which I'll come to in a minute, we've way past that. The majority of the teaching that goes on in Malvern at all the age groups is inquiry-based, which means that alongside the PYP and the MYP part of and the DP programs of the IB, you're getting children to think, to do research, to pose questions. They collaborate in groups. When I walk around the school, getting away from my glass and computer screen, it's a great joy to go around and see the children doing what they're doing. They're in little groups, whether they're 7-year-olds or 16-year-olds, working out different problems. They are collaborating. And then one of them will stand up and deliver to the class. They exchange information. It's very, very active what is going on in the classroom. The teacher is there, yes, to supply information, but more to guide and to challenge. And above all, critical thinking. We're going to run out of time, I know it. You see, I'm so passionate about this subject. When I started to teach the diploma part of the IB, which is many years ago in Malvern, UK, the first message you give to your children, 16-year-olds, is simple. Do not trust your teacher. Do not trust your textbook. That is how the DP begins. Are there other ways of looking at this? Could the teacher be wrong? Is there another interpretation to this problem? So you're looking at a Shakespearean poem. Traditionally, a teacher would say, this is what it means. Learn about it and comment on it. Now, this is what some people think. This is what other people think. What do you think? Can you justify it? Criticize. And again, linking what the child is learning, whether they're 6 years old or 18 years old, to the environment around them. So the children in my school are trying to use the information that they're learning about and the critical approach and link it into Hong Kong and to Asia. And it's great to see their eyes open and for them to begin to realize that what they're learning is actually meaning something. And they enjoy it. I'm being a little aggressive here. An end of STEM. STEM is ancient. STEM, the qualities that you and I think, realize what STEM is about, it should already be incorporated into the curriculum. It's not separate focus. We're way past STEM. STEM's archaic. We've got to look at these other skills, primarily creativity, to encourage children to be creative, to use knowledge, not just to learn it. Our children, in the next 10 years, they will have knowledge absolutely accessible. They don't need to learn it by heart like you and I, like I have to do. I mean, they Google it, it's on their phones, instant. I'm listening to a piece of music, and I just ask my phone, what's this piece of music? It just tells me. Our whole approach to knowledge has to change radically. Alongside this, the creativity, that's the big number one. Alongside that, we've got to pay more attention to emotional intelligence. I could talk about that, I don't have time. Emotional intelligence is really, really important. It goes hand in hand with everything else I'm saying. Critical thinking, again, we have to encourage our young people to be critical about things. to collaborate, yes, to use technology. Technology is crucially important and it will become increasingly so. But not to become a slave to technology, to use it when it is useful and appropriate, and to develop it. Something that I find particularly eye-opening since I'm leading a school in Hong Kong, we have to encourage our children to be more risk takers. Gross generalization, okay, I know this is a generalization, but generally speaking, my experience of children and teenagers in Hong Kong is that they are averse to risk taking. They don't like to take risks. What do I mean by a risk? Trying a new instrument, trying a new sport, actually putting it at the hands and asking the teacher something. And we have to give the children the confidence to take these little educated risks on, to provide the foundation for risk-taking as they get older. Educated risk-taking, not silly risk-taking, educated risk-taking. So when I say end of STEM, STEM it's still important, but it should be incorporated already into the syllabus and the curriculums. The focus should be moving away from STEM towards creativity. I hope everyone's still awake. Okay, you have 1 minute to think of how many things you can do with a safety pin, starting now. How many things you can do with a paper clip? 30 seconds. Okay, stop. I got my PA to do this yesterday. Yeah, she's great. She came up with, she did it in 2 minutes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Wrote down her 2 little thingies. 16 things. Just don't want to spend too long on this. Come, give me an example. What do you do with a paper clip?
Whole paper together.
Whole paper together. Another one.
Open up an iPhone.
Good. Open up an iPhone thing. Another one. Reset electronic devices. Okay. Why have I asked you that silly question? It's used as I got this from a Cambridge professor. It's used as an indicator of identifying how creative a child or adult is. The more you can think of, the bigger indicator it is of creativity. For adults, it's difficult to teach adults creativity, but if you start young, primary, upwards, you can build, 10 minutes, okay. You can build the creativity up. That's what we're doing, what we're trying to do. It's that kind of creativity. What did Jan come up with? Make jewelry here, hair accessories, key ring, holding a picture on a wall, open a lock, right? Creativity, thinking out of the box. Important. Linking it to Malvern and what we're doing in the school and the IB. The IB, to my mind, is the curriculum which identifies most of what I've just been talking about. It doesn't emphasize the word creativity as much as I think it should. I think it's likely to do that soon. If I had more time, I would talk more about these things. We call them Malvern qualities. And these are the IB learner profile. It looks quite complicated. It isn't. These are the qualities that we are trying to instill in all the children that come to my school. These Malvern qualities like risk-taking, resilience, curiosity, they actually came from me and an ex-headmaster of Malvern College UK. We came up with those. We thought those were the kind of things we needed Malvern pupils to demonstrate once they left the school. Again, I'm running out of time. I'd love to talk about all of those a little bit more. Google Malvern, Hong Kong, and you could get a little bit more information on this. But I want to move on. So, the Malvern approach to the IB. In the primary years, with little children, starting with 5-year-olds, for the first P1 to 6, inquiry, collaboration, and presentation are the kind of fundamentals as to what's going on. Yes, they still have their Chinese lessons, they still have math lessons, of course, but it's that kind of way in to the education which dominates what's going on. I actually volunteered with a P4 class on Wednesday. They were doing a unit of inquiry on the Second World War, and they were researching, and I gave them a little talk, and they were in groups of 3 to discuss the issues that children face in times of conflict. Terrific that the way in which their brains were working and amassing information and being able to be critically reflective on it. I don't have much time to do that. I'd love to be hands-on in the classroom, and I miss it enormously. But I had a chance last week to do it a little bit. As the children get older, it goes deeper. It gets just a little bit more substantial how they approach. And so we have, and the one big thing actually that the NYP has is more interdisciplinary. As a philosopher, that's what I taught at university before going back into school. As a philosopher, one of the things that's always frustrated me is compartmentalization of knowledge. Physics, maths, English. Break down those walls in order to see how everything links together, or can link together. And that's what we really try to do in the NYP. We try to find ways of showing children how they can bring in a bit of science and a bit of history and a bit of geography to whatever it is that they're looking at. And it makes their learning real. And then they begin to understand the unity of knowledge. Very different to when I was at school. And then we're about to start the DP program. We will start our 6th form in August. We're building up slowly year by year. And in the DP program, it's very, very obvious that children, as I've already just said, they are critical in their approach. They develop a mindset in order to look at knowledge and reflect on it and criticize on it. And if they're looking at a piece of history, they'll get evidence from here and here and here, and then talk about bias and all that kind of thing. Or even if it's maths, if there's a different, higher critical ability to look at a maths situation. So throughout the whole IB at Malvern, we are building up this creativity, critical response. I'm told I've only got 5 minutes, so I'm going to rush on this. The other thing that we are doing hand in hand to creativity is emphasizing leadership. A few years ago, I used to think you were born a leader, and that's it. Done a lot of reading on this. I am now convinced that's not the case. Some people are born leaders, but you can also inculcate leadership skills. We have got now leadership programs in place, and we're doing a particularly intensive one at the 6th form with a professional external mentor who's coming in. You put creativity, critical thinking, and leadership talent together, then have some really good foundations for a child's future. That's something we're working on at the moment. I've just given out some leadership scholarships last week. I'm determined to have just a few minutes for questions. Finally, this is going to sound a bit of a burden, but when your children are old enough to leave school and go to university, the general advice that we will be giving them in Malvern, Hong Kong, is that they will need more than one degree, preferably from different countries. It's a message I gave out to students in Malvern, UK. first degree either in the UK or US or somewhere, and a second degree, preferably from a different continent. That provides the global infrastructure and the openings, I think, for a child's success. It should not be looked on as a burden. It's just a slight continuation of their education. Then that's an exception. I mean, that's a generalization. There will be exceptions where that's not appropriate, but generally that's the kind of direction that we will push most of our children into. So first degree, whether it's here in Hong Kong or Australia or whatever, and a second degree, a master's or higher, somewhere else. I happen to have done that myself. Okay, so we have now until 2 minutes for some quick, that was awfully rushed, wasn't it? Any quick questions from anybody? Yeah.
How would you assure the teaching staff in Malvern, Hong Kong to have I'd like to ask, how would you ensure the teaching staff in Malvern, Hong Kong would have the necessary knowledge or experience to provide this IB approach education? Because maybe mainly would they become from like a traditional teaching school background, or?
Easy way to respond to that. We have just been accredited as an IB World School. My goodness, it's taken a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of paperwork, but we've got there. And one of the requirements of that is to ensure that every single teacher has had the correct level of IB training. Jolly expensive it's actually been, but it's been very worthwhile. And then we continue that training once they're in the school. So every teacher in the school has had the proper IB training, whether at PYP, NYP, DP, or sometimes at 2 of those levels. And it's ongoing. One more quick question. Yeah.
How many nationalities do you have in the student body?
Ooh.
And
Yeah.
what's the proportion?
I might pass that on to Holly. How many nationalities do we have?
38.
28.
38.
38.
38.
38. And we have a lot of Hong Kongers who happen to have a Chinese or American passport, but we have children from all over, which is wonderful. I think that's really, really lovely. I'm told we're over time. I'm so sorry. That should have really been an hour, and it would have given you an opportunity to but nobody fell asleep, right? Okay, lovely to meet you all. Thank you for coming.